So I hope you've had a chance to work through the two assignments that have to do with fallacies in reasoning. Fallacies in reasoning are addressed in chapter 20, but I thought it would be a good springboard for us for what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk to you about key concepts of basic persuasion theory. So log into Blackboard and click on Persuasion, and you will find a document underneath Fallacies in Reasoning Application. And it's going to read Key Concepts. So take a look at this document and let's do this together. There are three purposes of persuasive speaking. We want to, number one, shape responses. Number two, reinforce a response. Number three, change a response. So think of persuasion like on a continuum. So if you already think organ donation is a good idea, then after you see a story on the news about how many lives were saved with someone's organ donation, you are reinforcing a response because you already think it's a good idea. If you are shaping someone's response, think of any kind of diet program or eating program that people might get involved with. That program is trying to shape their response. When you change someone's response, you are giving them evidence that they did not otherwise have, therefore changing their mind based on new information. So, the three purposes of persuasive speaking are shaping responses, reinforcing responses, and changing responses. So what is being influenced? Four things are being influenced: beliefs, values, attitudes, and behavior. So what do you think is the hardest to change? I think we talked about this a little bit before spring break. If you remembered that values are the hardest to change, then you are right. Beliefs, attitudes are the easiest to change just by introducing new information. Behaviors, if any of you have ever tried to quit smoking or quit biting your nails or some other bad habit, you know that behaviors are difficult to change. So now let's look at some principles of persuasion. The first one is consistency persuade. You are more likely to be persuaded if the suggested change is consistent with your beliefs, values, attitudes, or behavior. Remember the example that I just mentioned about organ donation? If you think it's a good idea, and after you see a show, I remember seeing a show on Grey's Anatomy that talked about all the lives that one person saved by donating their different organs and tissue and things that are donatable. And after that, I already thought it was a good idea, but after that I was like, hell yes. So it prompted me to get a mark on my license and be sure my family knew of my wishes. That's called consistency persuade. You're more likely to be persuaded if the change is consistent with what you already think is good or right or true. The next one is small change persuade. You are more likely to be persuaded if the suggested change asks for a small change rather than a large change in your ideas or behaviors. Think of this example. I want you to stop eating out of vending machines. You're like, that's not going to happen. So how about this? I want you to eat out of vending machines one less time a week than you normally do. You're thinking, I could do that. And then I'm going to persuade you to show you how much money you can save a week by not eating out of a vending machine over a period of a month. How about that? So, small change, you're more likely to do it if the change asks for a small change rather than a large change. Let's look at benefits persuade. You're more likely to be persuaded if the benefit outweighs the cost. Okay, so think of your closet. Are you thinking of your closet? Now pull out 3 things that you haven't worn in the last year. Now bring those things with you the next time we get to see each other. So take how many people there are in the class, multiply it times 3, and that's how many articles of clothing that we have. What if I told you that I was going to take those items down to the purple door? It used to be called the women's shelter. Because some of those people, men, women, and children, left an abusive situation with nothing but the clothes that they were wearing. So if I told you that that's where your clothes were going, would the pain of you giving them away? No. Would the happiness of knowing where your clothes were going outweigh the pain of you giving them away? Yes, it would. So you're more likely to be persuaded if the benefits of the change outweighs the cost. Now let's look at the 4th principle of persuasion. Fulfilling a needs persuade. You're more likely to be persuaded if the suggested change fills some need in your life. So as a student, you probably do not have time for an animal or a dog or a cat because of your responsibilities. Maybe your apartment lease requirements don't allow you to have a pet. Maybe you can't afford the maintenance of a pet right now with food and vet bills. And what if I told you that the Humane Society needs people, volunteers, to come and play and hold the kittens and the puppies? So what if I told you that you could sign up once a month to go do that? So let's look at that. If you are more likely to be persuaded if the change fills some need in your life. So that's fulfilling a need. Let's look at the final one, gradual approach persuade. You are more likely to be persuaded if you are persuaded gradually instead of too much too soon. This is kind of like, in my opinion, I think of a salesman, a really pushy salesman trying to get your attention. For example, when you walk down in the mall, those people in the kiosks, they try to get your attention by asking you some random questions, so you turn to them and then they pounce on you and try to get you to buy their Dead Sea Scroll Egyptian scrub or something like that. But to me, that's the perfect example of too much too soon. So the 5th principle that we're talking about today is the gradual approach persuade. You're more likely to be persuaded if you are persuaded gradually instead of too much too soon. So now look below the principles and let's look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you took sociology in high school or in college, then you are familiar with this pyramid. But let's look at it in terms of what it means for persuasion. So Maslow claims that these are the hierarchy of needs that we as human beings have. The first one is physiological needs, what we need in order to survive. Air, water, food, shelter, clothing, and for reproduction, of course. So you are more likely to be persuasive if you try to persuade us to do something that is going to fill a physiological need. So, do you watch Shark Tank? So I do, and I love it. And it has caused me several times to go on Amazon Smile and pull up one of the food things that they are proposing that we eat for our health benefit. Let me get one of them for you. Take a look at this. This is something that I saw on Shark Tank, so I went to Amazon and ordered it. This is called palmini, and it's linguine or noodles made out of a vegetable, hearts of palm. So if you're trying to persuade me to do something that's better for myself or good for myself, try to put it in one of these hierarchy of needs. And this one would fit in what? In physiological needs of food. Let's look at the second one, safety needs. Unfortunately, you probably all have been victims of theft, whether it's from your car, your backpack, or even your apartment. If you've ever been violated that way, then if you try to persuade me to do something that is going to help secure my safety needs, then you're more likely to be persuasive. So safety needs, what falls under that is personal security, employment, resources, health, and property. The third need that Maslow identifies is love and belonging. Friendship, intimacy, family, a sense of connection. Probably some of you at this stage in your life, in your college career, have found other people on campus that have interests like yours, and you have joined those clubs. My athletes, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you have found a sense of belonging in your teammates. Likewise, the communication club, the media and arts club, those kind of clubs that connect you with other people like you are going to fulfill that love and belonging need. The next one is esteem. Respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. So if you try to persuade me to do something that is going to influence my esteem, you're more likely to be persuasive. The last one is self-actualization. When you were a child, your perception was that the world revolved around you, and it did, and you were in the center of the world. At this stage in your life, you should be moving to the outside of the world and saying, what can I do for the world? When you have succeeded in edging your way out of the middle to look inside, then you are closer to achieving self-actualization. And that is the desire to become the most that you can be. So, in this video, we've talked about concepts from Chapter 20, key concepts of basic persuasion theory. I hope you liked the video. Talk to you later.